There's a tiny button inside a Rolls-Royce that no dealer explains, no brochure lists, and no valet ever notices. Press it at the wrong moment, and you'll unlock a function the company quietly designed for clients who demand absolute control. Not comfort, not performance, but dominance. It doesn't activate a massage or a fragrance or anything you'd expect in a palace on wheels. This button changes the behavior of the car itself. Rolls-Royce engineers build their cars around silence, secrecy, and psychological authority. Every stitch, every motor, every line of code exists to make the driver feel untouchable. Yet the most fascinating elements of these machines are the ones they never publicly acknowledge. Behind the quiet doors, beneath the hand-polished veneers, they embed features designed for a very small circle of owners who live differently from the rest of the world. Owners who travel with security details, owners who prefer invisibility, and owners who consider privacy more valuable than horsepower. Most people believe Rolls-Royce luxury is all about indulgence. Rear-seat champagne coolers, starlight ceilings, lambswool carpets thick enough to bury your ankles. But the real magic isn't in the visible luxuries. It lives in the concealed mechanisms built for clients who never ask for comfort. They ask for control. Hidden buttons, silent overrides, discrete fail-safes, all engineered to give the owner an advantage in environments where reputation, wealth, and personal safety intersect. Among these subtle features sits a button that hardly anyone outside the Rolls-Royce inner circle has ever heard of. It's not illegal, not dangerous, and not advertised. It simply offers the kind of quiet, strategic power that blends perfectly into the Rolls-Royce philosophy. The idea that true luxury doesn't announce itself. It whispers. This button is tucked away in a spot that feels intentionally unremarkable. It doesn't glow. It doesn't stand out. Most passengers assume it's just another control for ambient lighting or climate adjustments. But once activated, it unlocks an entirely different personality inside the car, one designed to shield, protect, and outsmart the world outside your window. The first time a new Rolls-Royce owner discovers this button, their instinct is usually to assume it's cosmetic, something harmless, something aesthetic. But the moment it's pressed, the car performs a subtle internal shift that only the driver can feel. It's almost like the vehicle exhales. This button activates the car's silent override mode, a feature that resets multiple systems at once. Throttle mapping, suspension response, steering weight, and cabin management protocols. The car doesn't get faster, it gets more aware. Most high-end vehicles have a sport mode that stiffens everything, raises the revs, and shouts for attention. Rolls-Royce would never do that. Instead, silent override mode recalibrates the vehicle for high-tension environments, unpredictable traffic, aggressive drivers, or situations where the owner wants total smoothness without sacrificing alertness. The engine becomes quieter, the vibrations retreat deeper into the subframe, and even the steering feedback changes texture, more precise, more deliberate. The cabin's microphones, normally used for noise cancellation, switch to a slightly different frequency that isolates external threats more effectively. The transmission shifts with unusual caution, predicting movement instead of reacting to it. None of this is mentioned in brochures, because none of this is meant for the average buyer. The system exists because certain clients, executives, diplomats, individuals accustomed to attention they don't always want, need a driving mode that feels like an invisible shield. A mode where the car becomes an extension of their instincts rather than their ego. The button isn't a luxury accessory. It's a psychological asset. And it sets the stage for everything else hidden inside the vehicle. Most people know Rolls-Royce's main engineering teams, the artisans, the acoustic scientists, the suspension magicians. But behind them is a smaller, less publicized group known internally as the Shadow Division. They're responsible for designing features not for comfort, but for discretion. They work on systems that protect clients from attention, surveillance, and unpredictable environments. This hidden button is directly connected to their work. When activated, it reroutes several of the car's internal functions through a different logic tree, one that the standard owner's manual never references. For instance, the GPS shifts into a muted mode that avoids recording sensitive stop-and-go data. The parking sensors extend their detection radius, anticipating movement with almost uncanny accuracy. Even the air suspension behaves differently, preparing for sudden weight shifts from rapid braking or evasive maneuvers. The Shadow Division created these mini protocols because certain owners travel with convoys. Some have security personnel driving behind them, and others simply want their movements harder to track. This isn't espionage. It's luxury combined with intelligence. And the button acts like a key, unlocking a version of the car that behaves less like a limousine and more like a protective shell. For a brand that never rushes, never shouts, and never brags, this quiet engineering is the purest expression of their values. You don't need to know about these features. You're not supposed to. But once you do, the entire personality of the car begins to make sense. The fascinating part isn't that the button exists. It's how the car behaves once it's pressed. The driver feels it immediately, long before anyone else in the cabin suspects anything changed. The steering tightens by a fraction so small it would be impossible to explain without experiencing it. The acceleration curve becomes more linear, more predictable, almost like the car is anticipating what the driver will do before they do it. The brakes become firmer at the top of the pedal, giving the driver more control in delicate situations. The cabin sound profile subtly shifts, too. Rolls-Royce normally uses active noise control to erase unwanted frequencies, creating that trademark, weightless silence. But silent override mode alters that balance. It doesn't make the cabin louder, it makes the silence informative. Low rumbles from passing vehicles become clearer. Changes in road texture become more noticeable. The car begins whispering details it normally hides. Owners who regularly activate the mode describe it as the moment when the Rolls-Royce stops behaving like a butler and starts behaving like a bodyguard. Passengers don't feel a thing. The ride remains velvety, the temperature unchanged, the ambience still dreamy. But the driver senses the difference instantly. The car sharpens, focuses, and becomes wonderfully alert without losing a single ounce of its luxury. This dual personality is the genius behind the button. Rolls-Royce engineered a mode where the driver and passengers inhabit two different realities. The back seat remains a sanctuary. The front seat becomes a command center. This contrast reveals a truth about the brand. Luxury isn't softness. Luxury is control disguised as comfort. If this button has such extraordinary capabilities, why keep it quiet? Why not present it as a premium feature? Because Rolls-Royce's most powerful assets are always hidden. Some of their clients are public figures who can't afford to advertise their security protocols. Many prefer their vehicles to look unmodified, unthreatening, almost understated. The less the world knows about what the car can do, the safer those clients feel. Rolls-Royce doesn't market privacy, they embody it. Another reason, the feature is not meant for the average luxury buyer who wants flashy modes and loud exhausts. This button represents a different type of wealth, the kind that stays off social media, the kind that travels with security teams, the kind that measures success not by noise but by silence. Finally, Rolls-Royce doesn't need to mention it. Their clients notice things instinctively. The kind of owner who understands why this button matters doesn't need an advertisement. They just need the feature to exist. And the company knows something most brands don't. Mystery increases value. The less they say, the more the car feels like an artifact from a world most people will never enter. Rolls-Royce protects the story by never telling it in the first place. But the button still hides one final ability, something so subtle, so quietly brilliant, that even seasoned Rolls-Royce owners miss it for years. It doesn't change the car. It changes the way people around the car behave, and it reveals the true purpose behind the entire system. The most shocking function of the hidden button isn't about driving. It's about presence. When activated, the car adjusts its exterior lighting, engine idling frequencies, and approach profile to influence how people perceive it from the outside. Not manipulate, simply influence. Security experts call it perception shaping. Rolls-Royce calls it nothing at all, because they never mention it publicly. Here's what happens. The car's exterior LEDs subtly recalibrate to a cooler tone, giving the vehicle a more authoritative presence without appearing aggressive. The engine note drops into a deeper register, too low for most ears to consciously detect, but strong enough to trigger a subconscious response in people nearby. Pedestrians instinctively step a little farther away. Drivers hesitate before merging beside it. Even tailgaters back off without realizing why. The car emits an aura, not threatening, not loud, but commanding. This is not intimidation. It's psychological space. Clients who travel through unpredictable environments rely on this. It creates a protective bubble around the vehicle without ever drawing attention. A bubble built not from armor or gadgets, but from engineered perception. Most owners will never use it. Some will never discover it. But for the small circle who understand what true luxury means, control without conflict, presence without display, this feature becomes priceless. It's the quietest form of power Rolls-Royce has ever built. And if a hidden button in a Rolls-Royce can reshape the road around it, imagine what happens in brands that don't care about elegance. Brands that build machines for intimidation, not invisibility. There's a vehicle out there with a feature even more concealed, engineered not for silence but for dominance, and its most secret function isn't activated by a button at all. It's triggered by something far stranger.